Hello and welcome to It's No Secret. I'm Kat.
And I'm Christine.
And today on the show, we are talking about how to get ahead in life during a recession, because whether we're actually in a recession or not, I feel it was a bit iffy. They keep talking about it in the media like, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. But then things get good, like, you know, maybe some unemployment data or inflation is slightly lowering, but then also things get bad, like interest rates keep rising. So for all intents and purposes, let's just assume we're in a recessionary environment. I think we can all agree on that. And of course, you know, there are a lot of, as I said at the start, quite negative headlines going around, doing the rounds at the moment, making us feel a little bit panicked about life being expensive, things hard to achieve. You know, a few crazy stats about us being less wealthy in New Zealand, you know, the kind of net worth position of Kiwis falling, all that type of stuff. So how bad is it really? And if you are starting to read some of these headlines and feel potentially a little bit stressed out, what are the things that we can do to actually combat that, to make sure that we are still moving forward and getting ahead in our financial lives? So, Christine, question to you. Do you feel like you're currently stalling, getting ahead, or going backwards?
I think we're probably in between stalling and getting ahead. So I wouldn't say we're progressing as fast as we want to be, but we're not going backwards, which is very good place to be, I feel.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I feel pretty much the same. I don't think we're getting ahead, although we'll talk about some things that we've done to try and help us feel like we're getting ahead, because oftentimes optics in these situations are everything, right? It's more about how you feel and making sure that you are still working towards some of the things that make you feel like you're making momentum, because I think everyone hates the feeling of like feeling stagnant. You know, I think if you're going backwards, it's a little bit easier to identify that, and then you kind of maybe know, you know, granted, I feel like going backwards is not a fun position to be in either, but you kind of know if you are going backwards, what are the things that you need to maybe work on. Whereas when you're stagnant, it's like, oh, where do I start?
I also think when you're going backwards, it's like panic, need to get into a better position. Yes. When you're stagnant, you're like, oh, I could stay here. Like, it's okay.
It's okay. Something will come along that maybe will help this out. Like maybe, you know, things like inflation will reduce, and then interest rates will reduce, and then, you know, my mortgage or debts will be a bit cheaper, or whatever it might be, and it's like,
buy more food because it's not as expensive.
exactly. So yes, so on that, we're going to kind of, I guess, touch on quickly today a couple of the things that are adding to the sense of feeling like potentially we're going backwards, or that life is really expensive, and how to kind of combat some of that stuff, and then some simple tips to put in place, or just, I guess, recap on to make sure that people are still doing, so that you can get ahead in recessionary times. Because I think one thing I've been also reflecting on is, we've been talking a lot about at work in our jobs that, you know, brands and businesses that invest a lot in growing their brand and their marketing and all of that kind of stuff during a recession, which seems a little bit counterintuitive, are often the businesses that, as we are coming out of a downturn in a business cycle, start to have exponential growth on the upside, because they've made that investment in themselves during the tough times. And I feel like that's a lesson that just translates into our personal life.
Yeah. That's so true.
So what investments, Christine? I just keep putting you on the spot today. What investments are you currently making in yourself?
Oh, in myself.
So for your financial future, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Money steps. Currently, I'm very focused on rebuilding my emergency fund. So
nice.
We drained that to invest in private equity, and still really haven't recovered. And so that's why, it can feel like, oh, well, we just managed to build this up and now we're back to square one kind of thing. When really, actually, when you look at that objectively, we've put that money to work. So it's progressing forward. So we're both, Ollie and I, are very focused on that. And then once we hit that point, we just want to start to save, but also earn money off that money while it's saved. So, you know, put it in a cash fund, or you know, take advantage of the high interest rates and things like that.
Well, I was going to say, current interest rates, at least the positive of saving or rebuilding an emergency account is you feel like, I'm actually getting something on this. This is great. Even leaving it in Notice Saver or a cash fund, you can be getting upwards of 5% now. Yeah,
exactly. And I was talking to Ollie this morning, and he was saying that a hack that he's done is made sure that he is with the right, or the bank account that gives the highest return for his emergency fund. So he moved, I think it was from Westpac to Kiwi Bank. I think Kiwi Bank has a really good rate. Okay. Yeah, so hot tip.
Have a little look around in that space.
Yeah, but what about you? Because I know what you're going to say, and I think I want to emulate this, so I'm excited.
What am I going to say?
About the investing for Lily.
Oh, okay. Yes. No, okay. So, yes, I mean, okay, this has been a good life lesson. So this would be my first overall tip, I think, for making sure that you're still getting ahead during recession. And that is just eating some humble pie. So long story short, you know, everyone sets out with grand intentions to invest a certain amount or save a certain amount, right? And when we're in a position that we currently are, i.e., you know, everyone's cost of living is increasing, particularly if you have a mortgage. That's absolutely happened for us. Our mortgage is going to increase even further when it comes off its current fixed rate in September. So we've just had to be really realistic about how much we can regularly invest into Lily's portfolio, so for our daughter, and also our portfolio or savings. Now, me of like 2 years ago would look at the amount that we're currently able to invest and scoff, you know, and be a bit like, oh, you know, it's so much less than what you were able to do, and you're earning more money now. So like,
can I ask how
get
much,
your shit
what
together,
the difference is?
you know?
Yeah.
But I think it's, you know, you can't look at it with that lens and hold yourself to what you had necessarily done in the past, because then you're probably just not going to do it. Whereas if you just accept that what you can currently invest or currently save is enough, and it's also like more than enough because it's more than zero.
Yeah.
Right? Only be scoffing at yourself if you currently can't do it. And if you currently can't do it, there's hopefully good reasons as to why that's happening, so don't give yourself too much of a hard time.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the moment we are literally investing for Lily $20 a week, which you could look at that objectively and be like, that's not big bickies in comparison to what our household income is. But actually right now, that's just what we can afford to do for her. So we're going to do that. And I get a ton of like personal enjoyment seeing that deduction come out of my bank account every week, even though it's in, you know, a lot of terms, like a nominal amount of money. I spend more money on coffee a week than I invest for my child. But that's kind of just the reality of where we're at. Yeah. And a similar thing for, I guess, how much, you know, we're saving and investing for us personally is also a lot lower. So I think I have rejigged this a little bit recently, so I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, because my other tip on this, one of the things that we have talked about on the show a lot is the power of automation. And one thing that I finally did as a couple, which I'd be interested to see, I know you and Ollie have kind of separate money, but for anyone that has combined money with someone, I always found it a little bit hard to automate all of our savings and investments and various transfers, because Luke and I are both paid fortnightly, but we're on opposite fortnights. Oh. So we get money coming in every week, which is good.
Pros and cons,
but then it's like, when do you do the transfer out? And are you doing it on a fortnightly cycle or like a monthly cycle? And our mortgage is deducted on a fortnightly cycle. So then it's like basically a pay comes in and then the next day the mortgage goes out, and it's just always really like mess with my brain.
It's messy.
It is a bit messy. And so recently I sat back down and I was like, okay, we're going to redo, you know, a realistic assessment of how much we're currently spending. So that was step one, because I know you've got some fun facts about costs of groceries and mortgages. But, you know, a realistic assessment of how much we actually need to be spending on groceries, because what I had in our budget was not enough. Also, you know, factoring in future mortgage rate increases so that we don't get caught out later on in the year. And then I essentially made it calculate on what's our total surplus or total availability to save on an annual basis, and then I broke that down to a weekly number, and I tagged it to each of our pay cycles, and I also separated when we each get paid our fun money. So what I've done now is like, so this week Luke got paid on Wednesday. He gets paid his fun money on Friday following his paycheck. But on that same Friday, we also have a weekly amount that comes out into like Lily's account and our savings account. Yeah. And then the following week, I get paid on Friday. So I get paid my fun money. And then we also have money going out into our savings and investment account at that time. Okay. Now, this is working really well, but because I think, again, it's all optics. Because it's a weekly amount, the numbers feel smaller, so I notice it less, which right now is good because we're probably overspending a little bit still on like groceries and other stuff. Yeah. It also happens every week, so it's like I just don't feel like we're getting to the point now where we're inadvertently caught out. because it's too much.
Yeah, right. So it's not like a monthly massive sum that
because we've been in that behavior before, right? Where it's like you get paid, you take out your $500 for the month, and then you try and like live off the rest for the next 3 weeks, and it feels a bit stressful, and sometimes you bring that money back out of your savings. So I noticed doing smaller amounts more frequently and immediately tied to each of our paid cycles has resulted so far, we've been doing this for a couple of months now, has resulted in us dipping into our savings much less than we had been. So prior, we were just kind of throwing lumps into our savings basically at the end of every month. But then of course there were, the $200 or $300 withdrawals back into our everyday account to help us fund living expenses. And that was the sign for me that I was like, this savings plan is not working. Also, that's the first thing that just deflates you, right? Because you feel guilty about that. You know that this is not working for you. And I was like, I need to flip this. And even if it means starting smaller is better than cancelling it altogether.
Oh, I love this, because this is the exact problem that I'm having. Is so Ollie and I get paid, I think it's alternate weeks, but he's on a Monday and I'm on a Friday, so it feels like it's more of a gap than just the 2 weeks. And I believe that we both deduct our savings on a fortnightly basis, but I'm just finding I can never stick to the baseline amount, but I also know that I'm capable of doing it. And so maybe I should try to break it down more into smaller amounts to try that theory. But I also, just coming back to the grocery thing, how did you try to adjust your grocery budget? Because I think what I've observed is that over time I haven't allowed appropriately for inflation. And so I've kind of also fixated on this number that I've always stuck to spend groceries.
Yes.
But the reality is that
it's more now, right? Yeah. I think, to be honest, one thing that's really helped is we, on a part week, get half our meals through like my food bag or food delivery. So that's a fixed cost, right? So that for me is a good starting point, because I'm like, I know that I've got, say, the majority of our dinners covered by that. The thing that has then been hard, because we haven't had this experience before, is obviously now we're buying for a third person, and that's everything that we get from the supermarket. So the vast majority of our grocery bill at the supermarket is actually stuff for Lily,
because she loves berries.
She just loves food in general. She does love berries. So that is, has taken a bit of time, I guess, to try and normalize. And it's also actually one thing that's just a practical strategy. I'm sure a lot of parents do this type of stuff, is we try and regularly buy all the essentials, like say nappies or wipes or things that we know we're going to need, the longer term stuff, consistently, rather than bulking them up. So hot tip, and I knew this because Luke had done some work in a baby business before, is countdown run specials on, say, Huggies nappies or other nappies on a regular cycle, and we know that they're basically on sale in a different capacity every week. That happens. So when we see that, we'll just buy one packet or one box, say, with a regular grocery set. So it's like, I don't know, I just feel that doing it that way means that each shop is kind of consistently the same amount, rather than having those bulk shops that's $300. I feel like every kind of shop is maybe between $80 and $150 depending what's in there, and we probably have, let's say, one $150 shop and one $80 shop on a weekly basis, plus our food delivery. Yeah. And that's probably realistic for us as a family. And it's just sort of taken, I guess, being a bit more mindful of I'm one of those people that I go to the shop and they're like, this is the total, and I don't even process what the total is, and I'm just like, here's my card. Whereas at the supermarket now, I'm super conscious about making sure I get my rewards points and being like, okay, that is the total. I roughly know what's in my budget. If this is vastly above that number, I need to maybe not look at it right now, but remember this for next week. And if this also happens next week, what am I doing?
Yeah. Is this a theme, or is it a one-off because you decided to buy some biscuits or something?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is really hard. I do appreciate for families, the challenge is, you have multiple people buying stuff, right, for the family. And so that's why I guess Luke and I are also quite strict about making sure that all of those expenses come out of our one Westpac account that we both have a card to, because if one of us start to put those types of bills on an other rogue card, it's really hard to have oversight, when you do want to just have a quick review, and at least you can search in your Westpac app, which is awesome, countdown and roughly scan and see, okay, did we go there 3 times that week, 1 time, what were the costs?
Yeah, love that. My next question was, how do you manage that with someone else?
Yeah, you just force them to
do it your way.
Well, actually, also how I manage that is make sure that they have the right card, because a lot of it is the convenience of having the right bank card. So we do have the simple things of like, we have our primary bank cards on Apple Pay. So if you're caught out and you only have your phone, you can still charge it to the right account. And then the other thing is we're very conscious about not having too much money in our fun money accounts. Therefore, you actually don't have a choice. Like, there's no other account that you don't have, you know what I mean? Like, our fun money accounts that we're each getting money to on a weekly basis now is allowances for food, coffees, like our personal food, you know, going out for lunch at work, coffees, haircuts, all that that stuff. So sure, there might be like enough money that you could put an $80 shop on there, but then you're going to have to try and like get that back because otherwise you can't have any fun for the next fortnight.
Yeah. Have you increased your fun money with inflation and things as well?
Yes, I have.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I have. I was a bit more realistic about that too.
Oh, yeah, okay,
and for all the women in the podcast, Luke and I have different amounts of fun money because it does include things like haircuts, and everyone will know that things for women often cost more than things for men. And so if that's your situation, all power to you. You should definitely have more fun money.
Yeah, I'm so here for that
I pay for skincare. He does not.
Although maybe he should be.
Yeah, I mean, I do buy him sunscreen out of my skincare allowance, but like that's essentially his all he needs. Yes. So yes.
Oh, I love that.
Hit us with some facts, Christine.
Some facts. Okay, so
like, is it as bad as it feels? Is it as bad as the media is making it out to be?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I'm going to middleman it because I'm never firm on one side, it seems.
She's got commitment issues.
Yeah, literally. Okay, so definitely went on a bit of a fact-finding mission for this episode because there is a lot of new stats and things that have been released in the media over the even just the last week or so, really, around the cost of groceries and mortgages and things. So I'm going to rattle off some stats. So this one Herald article in particular highlighted some new research done by CanStar, which revealed that a survey of roughly 20,000 people between February 2021 and January 2023 said that 24% of them said that the price of food was the biggest worry that they had at the moment, which is up 11% from 2021.
Yeah.
So,
and that outranked the prior biggest worry, which I believe was like debt or mortgages. So people used to be more concerned about their debt, and now they're actually overweight, more concerned about food, which is stressful because I guess we all have to eat. I know we also do have to live, but yes.
Well,
yeah.
It does make you think like, what are the non-negotiables to survive as a human, right? You do need shelter in some form.
And you do need food.
Yeah, and water and things like that. So the price of house was the biggest worry for only 5% of people, down from 10% 2 years ago. So I guess when you think also about where we were 2 years ago, kind of the peak of the market really, or like house prices were crazy, and they have dropped off a little bit. So maybe that's a factor. And then what else? Oh, Kiwis in the region, women and those with incomes of between 30,000 and 80,000 were the most worried. So Taranaki residents were the most concerned, with 40% citing the cost of groceries as their biggest worry.
Wow.
Yeah. I found that quite interesting, that Taranaki in particular. I have no idea as to why, but that are rural, maybe it's the transport cost to get the food there.
I was going to say, I feel like, showing our lack of education here, but, there are a lot of assumptions made when you do live in a city that moving to the regions is cheaper. But I guess that mostly plays out into often like fuel and housing. Not really sure how much that plays out into food, and perhaps it could be the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so other fun stat that we found was the Spin-Off did a comparison of food costs between New Zealand and Australia, looking at Woolworths and Countdown online shopping in New Zealand dollars as at the 7th of April, so roughly a week ago, and they found that in New Zealand food is more expensive, shock horror, by
shock horror,
this specific amount. So 25% for fruit and veggie, 4% for bread and cereals, 31% for meat, poultry and fish, 39% for milk, cheese and eggs. Are you surprised?
The dairy one just cracks me up because you know how I feel about
the cheese
options in this country. But also I'm like, our primary industry is dairy. I don't understand. Like, Australia doesn't have a lot of cows. I feel like someone needs to fact check that, but I'm pretty sure Australia doesn't have a lot of cows. I don't understand what's happening.
Maybe they just get all of our milk.
I just don't know. I have so many questions.
Yeah. So
man.
to put this in context, because I thought this example was really interesting,
Yep.
a head of broccoli is $3.99 in New Zealand, and it cost $1.37 in Australia.
Yeah.
That is
My parents have
crazy.
this reckoning coming to them again because they're coming over soon, and every time we have the complaints about how much food is.
Yeah, I just think
I think
it's
as well
ridiculous.
because there's this expectation, well, there's this understanding that the Australian dollar is stronger than the New Zealand dollar. They, a lot of Australians, if they holiday here or come here to visit, they're like, oh, it's going to be fine. Like because of the exchange rate, it'll be on par or I'll be better off. And then they're like, holy smokes, like your country is so expensive. I'm like,
Everything.
yes. Hello. Petrol.
Yeah.
You'll be walking.
Yeah. How about a bike?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, points there for Australia.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the key part here that they found was that food has risen at the same rate across both of the countries from September 2017 to January 24.
Yeah.
24, we're not even into 2024 this year, I mean.
2023.
But it's clear that New Zealand has started at a much higher level or base cost for these things. So, yeah, we are just inherently disadvantaged from the start.
So on that super positive note, what can we do to get ahead? We've obviously already talked about automation, which is, one of our favourite tricks really in this whole space. And I think it's really key in these times because automation is the way that when everything is getting a little bit more expensive or potentially feels more expensive, it's your first line of defense against lifestyle creep, really.
Yeah.
Because it's the way that you're going to find out if you're not spending, you're not able to save as much as you think you are, or if you're saving comfortably, then you can kind of stretch yourself to save a little bit more. So that is definitely a big one. Also just finding all the tips and tricks around like food, right? I feel like everyone has to eat. Everyone is facing the exact same challenge with that. There's tons of awesome Instagrams and people out there that do all these hacks. I am going to put a shout out to anyone that is not that way inclined because I fall into this category of people where it's just absolutely not in my wheelhouse to do bulk dinners and make really cost-effective large portion meals and freeze them. I have tried so many times. My husband thinks it's hilarious because I'm always like, I'm going to do this thing and do this on a Sunday, and then it gets to Sunday and I just don't. And so I think that there's also an important recognition that if that's not you and that's not your skill set, that's okay. You can tackle this in other ways because, me putting the pressure on myself to just all of a sudden become like Julia Child and start making amazing slow cooked lambs is absolutely not going to happen. And as Luke constantly reminds me, he's like, your time is better spent, I don't know, being great at your job or being an awesome mum. So get out of the kitchen, which is great for him to say.
Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Luke. Love
So
that.
to you, babe.
Yeah. But I do think a way that you can, combating or an alternative way to manage that is doing things like My Food Bag or Soupy. So that's something that
fix
Ollie
your
and
costs.
refocusing on, is we've actually found that Soupy, the service, is a lot cheaper than just going to the supermarket because you also don't buy all the other crap that you're...
Takes out all your temptation buys and that kind of stuff.
You don't do it when you're hungry.
Exactly.
It comes at the same time every week. And also it's kind of fun because it's seasonal, so you get to
Try new stuff.
cook with the seasons. Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
I'm
Okay.
super into that.
What other tips have you got, Christine?
Well, for me, it's clarity is confidence. So you need to know where your money is going, which I currently don't, but take it from me that you should probably do that. So it's, we've talked about this many times on the podcast before, sitting down, going through 3 months of expenses, actually understanding what are the highest costs for you, but also are you spending money on what's really important to you? Because you could be going out for lunch every week when really you would prefer to, I don't know, go to a sauna instead, or, cut out those fun things altogether and have nicer food, or be able to buy the meat that is now 31% more expensive in New Zealand than Australia. So it's knowing where your money's going and then making sure that aligns with where you actually want it to be going.
Yep. Awesome. And then, there are all the little regular tricks that we talk about, just being really aware of what, debt levels you currently have, not putting your head in the sand if that's something that you're relying on. And then the other thing I think that's important about being able to avoid debt in the first place that we haven't touched on, and I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to talk about really quickly, is making sure that you're just being realistic with yourself. And I did have a little story to tell on this because we were talking about it yesterday of this year my husband turns 40 and he literally has has like all the ideas. He wants to do all the things every day. He's like, okay, this is what I want to do for my 40th. And we've gone from like having parties through to overseas holidays, through to more overseas holidays, through to him doing a triathlon, which sounds like it doesn't cost a lot of money, but like entries to races are like $500, and that also requires him to get a new bike, which is like $3,000. And I'm like, all of a sudden everything is really expensive and you can't do all the things. And so we've been having to have the hard and realistic conversations of things like, there are milestones that are going to come up this year that are important for us, but the reality is we probably can't spend money on some of those things in the way that we would potentially like to. Is it a deal breaker whether we do that this year or not? No, it's not. And you know what? Like, let's, for the birthday example, celebrate your birthday in a way that's actually meaningful and special. And if the thing that is most important to you is, say, going on a holiday, let's put that in planning and do that next year. Because, you know, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to care or remember whether or not you had your 40th birthday holiday in the year you turned 41 or the year you turned 40. You know, it's more about doing it in the way that they want. And so, just having that readjustment of your expectations and goals is important, because as we talk a lot about, like, a year is not a long time.
No.
And if you need to delay something because right now it's unachievable, that's fine. You'll still get there.
Yeah, love that.
Reality is key.
Yeah, I have another story, but I'll save it for another day.
Save it for another day, which means you have to come back next week and hear Christine's stories.
It involves cabins.
Wonderful. Can't wait to hear it. Well, thank you for listening today. Hope there were some, I guess, helpful tips to empower everyone to get ahead in this current challenging time. Just remember that any progress is good progress, and, you know, no one's here to judge or say that you need to do a certain thing in a certain way. So take what you can, and we will hopefully see you next Tuesday. If you want to hit us up on the gram at It's No Secret NZ, and we will chat to you soon.
Bye.